So it's no longer about Palestine, it's about the end of Canada. So I awoken from my influenza-induced coma this morning. Sorry for the lack of videos this week, but I've been sick, so you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm going to do the best that I can in this video. In Canada and throughout Canada, throughout the world actually, there's been these protests for Palestine in Canada, which started out as support for Palestinians in their plight with what's going on over there, has quickly turned into open support for terrorism and open support against Canada as a whole. It seems like when they're shouting death to Canada, I kind of take their word for it. Here's Brian Lilley to talk about this as we get into this story.
Canada, Vancouver, Monday. You had enough? Are you getting angry yet? I'm certainly done with what we're seeing on the streets of Canada. Vancouver, Monday night. A commemoration, a vigil, a celebration of the October 7th terrorist massacre. Yes, they called it beautiful, but listen to what else they were saying.
Death to Canada!
Yeah.
At another point, they were celebrating Hamas and Hezbollah, saying that we are them and our resistance has lived forever. Well, it's time for this to stop. This is not acceptable on Canadian streets. Pier P and the Conservatives want to ban Samadoun. The organizers of that rally call them a terrorist group, which they are, but we need to do more. It's time for Canadians to wake up and push back.
Well, are Canadians waking up? All I know is that in Vancouver, this is the scene on the streets here. You got Marty up north commenting on this. I've been avoiding talking about this Middle East conflicts for years because it's not my fight. The two sides have been at it for generations, but when I see stuff like this, my blood boils, and for good reason, absolutely good reason. It should have nothing to do with the ending Canada, death to Canada, anything like that. In my opinion, if that's what you want, I don't usually encourage spending taxpayers' money, but one-way tickets to the place that they're talking about perhaps is in order in this. Now, so Jarryd Jäger saying on Twitter, anti-Israel demonstrators in Vancouver aren't even trying to hide it anymore. We are Hezbollah and we are humans, they're being chanted.
We are the Black Panthers! We are the Double Tigers! We are Al-Ansar! We are the Zapatistas! We are the SLN! And yes, we are Hezbollah and we are Hamas!
Well, you don't have a place here, it would look like, because those are terrorist organizations, and it should be seen as that. Now, this has made it all the way to Parliament, and comments have been brought up by certain MPs. This is Kevin Vuong, Conservative MP, bringing up the fact that this stuff is happening on Canadian streets.
Mr. Speaker, today is the first anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel. On that horrific day, Hamas killed over 1,200 people, including 8 Canadians and over 200 taken hostage. At home, in 1 year, there's been nearly 5,800 incidents of hatred and anti-Semitism, including Samadoun posters today for a Toronto event under the heading Long Live October 7. Mr. Speaker, the government's pathetic condemnation of Hamas with no action on domestic pro-Hamas supporters does nothing to end violence and intimidation. Will the government give up its veiled support for terrorist sympathizers? The safety of our citizens is the only priority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so that was obviously remotely done for Parliament. Now, in response to this, what do you think the response is going to be? Do you think it's going to be, yeah, we also condemn this stuff? No, instead it's push a bill to end free speech in Canada. I'm not kidding. Have a listen.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
I'll agree with one thing that independent member just said. The safety of our citizens is the only priority. That's why we have a national action plan to combat hatred. That's why we have a bill on the legislature floor right now, Bill C-63, that would target online radicalization that leads to anti-Semitism. How does somebody get to the point where they're targeting a Jewish day school, a Jewish daycare, or a Jewish synagogue? Because they are radicalized online. That same bill has augmentation of penalties for willful promotion of anti-Semitism, public incitement of hatred, and advocating genocide.
The bill also wants to put people in jail for just saying mean things on the internet. It's a bad bill. Bill C-63 is terrible. We have laws on the books against acts of terrorism, calling for the death of people, threats of violence. We have this on the books. What is the government doing about this? They're doing nothing about it. And this is the problem. They want new powers. They want new bills. Melissa Lansman commenting on this. Obviously, she's got a dog in this fight, a Jewish Canadian parliamentarian. The pro-terror mob is now burning Canadian flags on the streets of Vancouver after a year of lawlessness and escalation every day with no consequence. Is everyone awake yet? Of course, no consequence. Even sometimes the police are coming out there with Tim Hortons for them. We had a big working class protest a couple of years ago. Do we have the same response for that? No, not really. Nomad Ruth jumping in there to say, I did not serve this country for 26 years to have dissent into this. The Liberal Party are solely responsible for where we are now. After 9 years, crime is up, taxes are up, chaos is up, time is up. And thank you for your service, my man. Absolutely. More people commenting on this, of course. Justin Trudeau's ego on X. Last night, Hamas supporters burned Canadian flag and ripped it in half. This is a lovely act of tolerance. When the truckers put a flag on the Terry Fox statue, I called them terrorists. But these people are simply enriching our culture. Absolutely. Wow, amazing. But you know what you cannot do? You cannot show up with a sign that says F Hamas. I am not kidding. This man was stopped by Vancouver Police, stopped from going anywhere near the protest. Vancouver cops will not arrest you for burning Canadian flags and chanting death to Canada. No, of course, that is free speech. I agree that is free speech. But when you start saying long live October 7th, that is an incitement to violence. That is to say, you want it to happen more. That, I believe, is an incitement to violence. This is absurd that anybody is allowing for this. Now, Pierre made a speech. Well, Pierre, in all honesty, Trudeau did a speech with Pierre. They were almost verbatim until it gets into the second part where Pierre is actually condemning this stuff instead of Trudeau, who kind of sat on his hands over this one because why? I don't know. These are supporters of his, the last remaining supporters.
Why now? Why now? Now, we might say, well, of course, because tensions are inflamed by the war between Hamas and Israel. But wait, this is not the first war that Israel has had to fight. There have been countless wars where Israel has had to defend its very existence. And those wars did not spill onto Canadian streets. In 2000, it's true. It's true. In 2008, and 2007, 2006, when Israel was forced to fight back against Hezbollah in Lebanon, there was no violence on our streets. We did not have hate crimes overtaking Jewish communities, protests at Jewish hospitals, Jewish homes, Jewish businesses. When there was conflict again in 2014, that did not spill into our streets. So why now? Why all of a sudden has this hatred found such a home here in Canada? Now, some say it's because our people are flawed. The government needs to fix the people, censor the people, better control and corral the people. Well, is it really the people who are the problem? It wasn't the people who appointed Laith Maruth, an anti-racism expert, after he had said, and I quote, "Life is too short for shoes with laces or for entertaining Jewish white supremacists with anything but a bullet in the head." Given a Government of Canada grant, this individual supposedly to fight racism. Or Birju Datani, appointed as the Commissioner of the Canadian Human Rights Commission, after he wrote, "Terror is not an irrational strategy pursued solely by fundamentalists with politically and psychologically warped visions of a new political, religious, or ideological order. It is, in fact, a rational and well-calculated strategy that is pursued with surprisingly high success rates." The head of our Human Rights Commission. Or an Ontario school that forced children to attend an anti-Israel protest. Kids divided and told to wear different colors to identify their ethnicity in Canada. My friends, this ideology that seeks to divide our people based on race and ethnicity that has led to these horrifying outbursts of hatred are not from the bottom up, they are from the top down.
Wow, that is some strong words. Absolutely strong words from Pierre saying that basically this is the Trudeau policy. It's been the Trudeau policy to divide people and pit them against each other. As long as people are divided, of course, the Liberals are going to do quite well and spend all of our money in the process. Now, of course, the Liberals have turned this into a political show, of course, as they always do. Marty up north pointing out the Liberals have nothing left in the tank. They're still going on about Nazi flags on Parliament Hill, Diagolon, right-wing German politicians. They're desperate. Here's Mélanie Joly going on in a rant about exactly that.
Now, when it comes to the leader of the opposition, Pierre himself, let me be clear. What we saw yesterday was the height of hypocrisy. Clearly, Polyev is doing one thing and saying one thing, and he's doing another. I'll give you 3 examples. First, while he's saying that he's fighting anti-Semitism, he never condemned those who were waving a Nazi flag during the Freedom Convoy on this Parliament Hill. Why didn't he? Second, he cozies up to groups like Diagolon, who spread neo-fascist ideology across this country. Why does he denounce their anti-Semitism as well? And also, when his caucus met with far-right politicians from Germany that were downplaying Hitler's crimes, he kept them in his caucus, and they're still sitting next to him in the House of Commons. So clearly, what we're seeing is that Pierre Poilievre is about double standards, and he's about himself, his own political gain, and ultimately, he's unfit to govern this country.
So turning it into a political game, of course. Alex Zoltan pointing out the only thing worse than waving a Nazi flag on Parliament Hill would be inviting a little Nazi into the House of Commons and then giving him a standing ovation. That's the Liberal Party right there. Anthony Housefather being asked on the streets just outside of Parliament about his take on what's been happening on the streets in Canada.
Dispute between the Foreign Affairs Minister and Mr. Polyev. Is Mélanie Joly pandering to...
I'm not going to comment about... You can ask me a substantive question. I'm not going to talk about personalities. Anti-Semitism in this country is a serious issue. The demonstrations have had anti-Semitic rhetoric that has been floated out, and to use October the 7th, a day where 1,200 Israelis were murdered, the worst day for Jews since the Holocaust, to do what was done in a number of places yesterday, and to make anti-Semitic in statements and glorifying terrorism and glorifying what happened on October 7th is an absolutely horrendous thing that should not happen in Canada. And anyone who was part of those demonstrations, what happened at McGill where a building was vandalized, it's absolutely disgraceful. So whatever differences there are between the parties, I think and I hope we all agree that October 7th is a day that has to be remembered for what happened and not used by people who don't like Israel to terrorize people in Canada.
Well, it will be, and guess what? It'll be also enforced by the police. I'm not kidding. Lilley, Parliament Hill cops ban man over opposition to Hamas. What? An opposition to Hamas. This was recorded by Daisy Media. You all know Daisy Media. A man who wanted to go in as in opposition, or just wanted to go to the Parliament Hill, regardless of what was happening at the event, was turned away by a cop on ideological grounds.
You are not a supporter of Palestine. You are not permitted on... Yeah, that was before you admitted being against this cause over here.
You never said he was against this cause.
Yeah, he did. He said he's not a supporter of Palestine and doesn't recognize Palestine as a state.
No, I didn't say that.
But do we want to rewind the video and see?
Well, there's no audio in the actual camera.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. Eh? But no.
Well,
so you said it.
Camera,
you said it to me. My colleague understood.
Yeah, I said
clearly,
I don't accept Palestine as a state. That doesn't mean I'm anti-Palestinian people.
You don't recognize. And you said you don't support Palestine. Okay?
I don't recognize Palestine as a state.
You said if he took the shoot.
So let me get this straight. You can only go on that day to the Parliament Hill if you support Palestine. The Parliament of Canada the Parliament of Canada. That's where we are now. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Comments, as always, in the description or in the comment section down below. Links to all of this will be in the description down below as well. But please, yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Sorry about being sick this week and missing the first few days, but I'll be getting right back on that wagon, get going again. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.